Welcome, 6++ fans, to State of Play. You know this one. This is the one where we go in depth with faction specialists about their favourite armies, get the lowdown on what's popping with the faction, what works, what doesn't work, what they've learned. And we've got a very special guest today because we're going to be talking about Imperial Agents. And quite famously, up until very recently, there was essentially only one person that played Imperial Agents in, I think, the world. And he's here today with me. Si, how are you?
Not too bad, Tom. Not too bad. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm very good. I've been looking forward to this one. This has been one we've been meaning to do for a long time, and obviously we ended up with a whole book and release for Imperial Agents, which is really exciting and I'm sure a bit daunting for yourself as the previous sort of solo representative of the faction. Maybe there's going to be a lot to deal with now as other people are all up in your space, but as someone who I imagine is a big fan of the models and the aesthetic that goes on with Imperial Agents, probably a very exciting time for you.
Very much so, yeah. It's a whole different space to be playing in. I mean, we've got rules for a start, which is
Yes.
madness.
And if we start with your adventures up until this point, because obviously you've been commented upon before, people have noticed you. I remember Jeremy at StatCheck was like, "I'm going to create a little Imperial Agents tab because I know Si's plugging away with them, and I want to make sure that it gets captured and we get the data." But how long have you been on this quest for? When did this Imperial Agents thing start for you?
So this is actually Zach, the organizer for the UKTC. Really, it's his fault. So
Okay.
way back in like 2 years ago now,
Uh-huh.
he put out Ninth is coming to an end, so the King of Ninth, and he was running through on his little podcast. When he was doing that, he was running through all the faction specialists and saying, all right, who's at the top of them? So you have your Nassims, your Manichimas, all of these big names. And then he just put a little snide remark as he was running through all the comments, running through all the factions, and he got to Imperial Agents and says, "Oh, we've not had anyone running Imperial Agents." I said, "Go on, someone, put one in before the end of Ninth." And I was like, this is interesting. That's a low-hanging fruit. I'll go for that one.
Yeah.
And so at the back end of Ninth, when GW finally fixed the keywords for like all the assassins, all the inquisitors and stuff, so you could actually run them, there was one tournament pretty much left on the UKTC event calendar to run before the end of Ninth. And that was the one I could get to anyway, was the May ITT. So I managed to get in touch with Zach and say, "Look, right, here's my plan. I want to do this. You've set this challenge. This is what I do." And I managed to corral together about 1,000 points worth of Imperial Agents. And I was like, I don't have enough to fill it out. So what can I do here? Right, okay, I'll get a Vortex missile battery. That'll eat 500 and something points. So one of those, brilliant. And then I was like, oh, and a Canis Rex or another big knight. That'll eat another 500 points. Sold. There's 2,000 points worth of army. Now I just need a team. And one of the teams that was already running had someone drop, and so Zach hooked me up with them. Unfortunately, they had an Imperial Knights player, so I had to corral about 500 points of Admex to fill the slot as allies, because you could run allies with other factions back then, not like what we got now. But yeah. So we ended up going to this tournament, going to the teams tournament, and bringing 1,000 points worth of agents, all the assassins, because they're fun. They are fun.
They're really fun.
The Vortex missile battery, which was brilliant, because the first game I played, we put it down and I put it on the table. I was like, right, I can't deploy this anywhere. Let's get the TO over. TO said, yeah, if you can put it on the table with outside of 3 inches of any other piece of terrain without moving the terrain, you can deploy it. And we looked at all of the UKTC deployments that event. So that's nowhere then. Like, yes, fantastic. So I basically played the whole tournament about 580 points down because I couldn't deploy this Vortex missile battery anywhere.
Oh my god, amazing.
So that was a hoot. But the highlight of that whole tournament was when I was playing a Tau player from the Death Corps of Queen's Road. Shout out to them, they're pretty cool. He didn't manage to drop his big brick of Crisis battle suits. So they stayed off the board and got destroyed at the end of turn 3. It was like, good, we're actually playing at the same amount of points through this game now.
Beautiful.
And that was the only game that I came away not being flattened. But it was a hoot.
Yeah, especially you've been willing to put yourself in the way of danger to run this faction, haven't you? Really, you've had to take some scary games.
Yeah.
And so that at that point, that became your calling from there on out.
Pretty much. I thought, well, it's not good. It is funny, and I am enjoying it. And the looks on people's faces whilst playing 10th. First off, is this legal? Then after the debate of like, well, no, you can run it. It just doesn't have a detachment, which caused lots of confusion back before there was a codex. But it was more, as you said before, it was more a case of, so what does your army actually do? And the answer is, well, nothing. But I've got a lot of data sheets and I've got a lot of weird stuff in them.
Yeah, it's sort of, it can, you say, remember, you were definitely winning games with it. So it had some tricks. It had a few little things it could do in 10th with the combination of random data sheets you'd put together. You could catch people out.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you beat Eldar at one point with it.
Yeah, so LGT was a laugh. I beat Eldar twice, and it's effectively
so good.
the same combo, which is you wait for the Incarn to pop out, the Incarn pops out, and then goes, I'm going to go here. And you go, actually, I've got these 3 12-inch deep strike deny bubbles, so you can't go here, here, or here. So it ends up, I'm going to put it here then, sat out in the terrain. Fantastic. Rapid ingress of Warglaive and the Calexis Assassin, because the Calexis Assassin is key here, because the Incarn's a psycho. You whiff your melter shots into the Incarn so it's still there, and then you just dev wound him to death. Shoot him to death with the extra attacks with the Calexis, charge him with the Calexis and say, he's on 3 wounds. Not anymore.
Amazing. Absolutely beautiful.
It's just
absolutely beautiful.
Combos.
And so LGT actually winning some games, beating the hotness. You carry on running up until about this point with it, right? How's it been since?
So I basically got in as many events as I could, as many GTs as I could, and the biggest change, the biggest impact to the army was actually Pariah Nexus. So the way that actions changed, because half of the advantage of Imperial Agents pre-Pariah Nexus, so in Leviathan, was that almost all the units had assault in some flavour or other, which meant you could just throw out, you had no vehicles, you could only use things like Rapid Ingress or Deep Strike from a couple of keywords, but you could just throw units up the board into all the corners or edges that you need to, and they would be able to do an action.
Yeah.
And because you used to be able to fall back on grenade, the old grenade strat on the breaches was you rolled 7d6. So they've got a lot of OC, they just fall back, and then they just throw grenades at whatever they just fell back from, which enabled you to put out a deceptively large amount of mortal wounds from chaff.
I see. Okay, so Pariah took away a few of the tricks, a few of the combos.
Yeah. It was a harder push, but you still had the resilience of there's a deceptively large amount of invuns and feel no pains that was in Index Agents.
Yes, and this was the thing, right? It was a deceptively tar pity for a bunch of little trash lads and little spikes of damage to get things done. That's interesting. And are you I assume you're in a good position to take top Imperial Agents heading into LGT? Are you feeling good?
I'm feeling happy going into LGT that hopefully I should come away with a higher ranking of Imperial Agents, unless a couple of the other guys that are on the Agents Discord show up and basically just be better player than me and do well.
I guess there will always be that risk, but you've done the Lord's work up until now. So that takes us to the present. Obviously, Imperial Agents got a book, got a release. And I will confess, Si, this is a release I'm not especially clued up on, so I'm very excited to get the lowdown from you. But at the outset, before we get into this, I'm going to do a very Adam Camilleri thing and say, out of 10, how satisfied with this book are you? How close to meeting your expectations has it got, you as Mr. Imperial Agents?
So I'll take a step back and say, from a community perspective, I can see the disappointment. There's a lot of people there that were thinking it would do more. Thinking there's a great deal of lore to draw on, and they thought, well, we could pull all of these extra units from other factions that we used to do in the past. So, like, the obvious one that most people sing about is the lack of inquisitorial stormtroopers, because where are the scions? Which is fair. But also the inquisitorial land raider, which would have made a massive difference to the balance of this book.
Yeah.
But from someone that's been playing them since the end of 9th and the beginning of 10th, I'm going to give this book like a 7 or an 8 out of 10.
Beautiful. Okay, so you're very happy, and that's all relative, isn't it? I guess sort of in terms of a power shift. What would you say are its strengths, Si? What if we're going to sort of get the headlines out the gate? What about this Imperial Agents book do you like? What's caught your attention right away as you start making it into a sort of a list to play games with?
So what they've done with there's 4 detachments. I like the themes behind 3 of the detachments. Obviously, the Ordo Xenos, the Ordo Hereticus, and the Ordo Malleus. I
Yeah.
like that they've kind of kept the lore and the fluffy. This is a really fluffy codex. It's very
Yeah.
fluffy.
Yeah.
But from a competitive standpoint, which is where my experience has come from, there is still some play in the Imperialis fleet. And I think Ordo Hereticus for teams certainly has an element of use with its
Okay.
across the board ignore cover and sustained hits when you're playing to chaos. So when you get to choose your fights, just basically having blanket sustained hits on everything for no reason is
Yes.
quite nice.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the things that I'm most interested in is definitely the Imperialis fleet. They've got some ploys and some stratagems now, which is nice to be able to have that, and a detachment rule which, on the face of it, doesn't look like much when you can compare it to other armies. But for what it does and for what it is, some of the combos you can exploit, I think, are quite powerful.
Okay. Well, let's start with some of these detachments and some of the options you'd have if you were playing it solo. And my understanding is that the points are slightly different if you're playing just agents as compared to plugging things in, right? Which is quite a nice touch.
Yes.
So I think if we start there, and then we'll think about maybe what you think your tips are for people who want to use this book with other armies and what some of the combos might be there. But let's start with the fleet. What's got you excited about the fleet? Why is this one standing out the most? Would you say?
So for a start, most of its stratagems are actually useful across the board. So a lot of the other detachments focus in on keywords, and that really narrows down because there aren't a great deal of data sheets in Imperial Agents. And when you're narrowing them down to just a handful, like 2 or 3, from the 7 you've only got or so to play with, then it makes the use of the detachment much less viable. But Imperialis fleet targets agents of the Imperium keyword as opposed to specifics like Hereticus or Malleus.
Yeah. So
There
it's a
are a
more
few.
more generalist. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a few strats that say, "Oh, I'm looking only at Voidfarers," which is a new keyword that's arrived with the codex. Um, but for the most part, it's usable with everything. And for an army that's built around souping, having a detachment that lets you soup your army more is better, I feel.
Yeah, completely. Okay, so what are the tools available then? What in the strategies and enhancements have you got to play with?
So, stratagems wise, you've got some really nice stuff, which is Emperor's Will. Okay, so this is an underrated one. I think it's one that doesn't get mentioned much in our chats and things, but
Okay.
effectively it allows you to spend a CP to ignore precision
Oh, I like that.
on
That's
a
fun.
2 up. On a 2 up. So say
Okay,
someone says,
okay.
right, I'm going to pop your Inquisitor. You're like, oh, okay, I'm going to spend a CP. You can try and pop my Inquisitor. And on a 2 up, it goes into my retinue or
Oh, I
my
like that. That's
Inquisitorial
fun. I've not
agents.
seen that before. Okay, so counter precision.
Yeah.
Delicious. Yeah.
Which, given that the army relies on our characters to really drive whatever punch we're trying to put out, it's
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
to be able to give them some protection.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a
Um,
very good one.
and one that you will see, if you ever play Agents player that's playing Fleet, you will see this strat of the 3, you'll see this one come up most, which is Displacer Fields.
Okay.
Displacer Fields is the closest gotcha that Imperial Agents have now, which is, in effect, when your unit is targeted by the enemy in the shooting phase, so in your opponent's shooting phase, so you're shooting me, and you're going to say, right, I'm going to put all of my shots into your Rogue Trader Entourage and those breaches. And you go, that's fine, I'm going to spend a CP and do Displacer Fields, and what that will do is that'll give my unit a 4-up invulnerable save.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
then when you've
Okay.
finished shooting, I can move a normal move of 6 inches.
Oh, okay.
And
Yes.
I've already
So
used
it's
it
got a
to
little bit
great
of
effect.
trickery. Yeah, I was going to say. So that's going to push those sort of undercommit, overcommit moments where if the opponent doesn't respect a little unit, is suddenly going to absorb, get out of the way, cause problems, or absorb and come forwards, cause mayhem. That's a flexible sort of skill expression type strat, which feels very tasty. Okay, so those 2 are the standouts. Anything else in there that I should be wary of, Si, in my quest to defeat Imperial Agents?
So, yeah, close quarters barrage and violent acquisition. And the reason that these ones have come up is that because one of the enhancements that you take, which is Fleet Master, lets one of your characters, one of your Voidfarer characters, target their unit with that stratagem for free. And it
Okay,
explicitly
nice.
states those, so it's just basically for free.
Yeah, that's good to have.
So close quarters gives your unit +1 strength and +1 AP for something it's attacking
always
within
good.
12 inches.
Yep, always good.
And Violent Acquisition gives you either sustained hits 1 and ignores cover if you're shooting, or sustained hits 1 and lance if you're in melee.
Okay, some nice combination plays there as well. So these little units are suddenly going to start punching up above their weight, which is quite fun.
That's the plan. Yeah.
And what will it? Is there any real? You said obviously this detachment it goes with Imperial Agents. So does this work on all of the different bits you can plug into it?
Pretty much. So the only ones that you need to, the only ones that don't is the close quarters barrage, which targets the Voidfarers. So this will be your Voidsman at Arms and your Rogue Trader Entourage, and the Masters of the Void strategy, which is effectively allows me to bring my reserves on in your deployment zone in turn 2.
Oh, that's fun. Okay, yeah, that's nice as well. So it's just little bits of sneakiness, isn't it? Smattered in there, a few little things to catch people out, keep them on their toes, which I enjoy. And was there anything else in the enhancements, or were those the standouts for you?
So the other enhancements that you will see are actually all pretty good. So you've got Clandestine Operations, which gives me the ability to pick 3 units at the start of the game. At the don't include Grey Knights Terminators, unfortunately. They have to be infantry units. I give them infiltrators.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And I can see why they've not let you do that on Terminators.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay because you can still give it to your Subductors, which is a top pick unit for any Imperial Agents army, which we'll come on to later.
Yes, we will. Okay.
And the other one is Combat Landers, which allows you to pick 3 Voidfarers units and give them Deep Strike.
Okay, so again, just little sprinkles of utility, stuff's up the board, stuff's dropping in. Yeah, it feels like there's actually a deceptive amount of positioning and maneuvering available in Imperial Fleet, which is, I guess, makes sense, right? With it, the way it's being played out thematically, it's dropping people in and helping people get around. So those are definitely some tools you can exploit things with. So that suite of tools feels like it probably leans towards a bit of a combined arms, but lots of bodies and infantry and scoring. And what for you? What does an Imperial Age sort of a Imperial fleet list look like? Where are you starting in terms of the design? And then maybe that will give us some units to go into in depth.
Okay, so an Imperial fleets list. We had this conversation quite recently. You start with at least 1 Rogue Trader Entourage, and the reason you start with a Rogue Trader Entourage is because their inbuilt ability is you get to redeploy D3 battle line units.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah,
which is an often overlooked combo when you bring armored your allies because they're battle line.
Yes,
so you put your Warglaive in the middle, and everyone stacks up, and then you go, "Oh, I'm going to put this into reserve now," and then I can rapidly invest my Warglaive later.
Beautiful. Okay, so Rogue Trader Entourage for some shenanigans.
And you give the Rogue Trader Entourage the Fleet Master ability because they'll be attached to one of your Breacher teams or your Voidsman teams. Because the other ability that the Rogue Trader Entourage has is it gives the unit that attaches to Infiltrate. So there's your 4th Infiltrate unit. So you've got at least 4 Infiltrator units before you even start looking at Assassins with their abilities. So yes, you're basically...
an agent's jail you're building, sorry. Is this what's going to happen in a minute?
Pretty much. So then you start... Oh, so you need breaches for your Rogue Trader Entourage. So you have 1. Well, maybe 2. Probably 3 is a safe bet. 2 is a good start. They've got the grenade strat that works 18 inches as well once per game, which is quite nice.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And they also have 1 4-up invuln in the squad just for fun, and a demo charge, which now is the same as the GSC demo charge. Sad times. The old one was so much better.
Yeah, I miss the old ones as well. But for the good of the game, they're gone. So sorry that you're caught in the explosion.
I know.
It's brutal. Okay, so lots of infantry so far.
Yep. But any Imperial Agents list, not just Fleet, but any of the others, also benefits from Subductors. So the Exaction Squad Subductor, or the RBTs, they're just a bunch of T3 bodies. They've all got a 3-up base save and a 4-up invuln, apart from the dog. And that's 11 bodies that you can just put on the board, basically sit on an objective turn 1 and say, look, these guys have all got 4-up invulns. If you can get a line on them, you're going to have to do a lot of killing. They're only T3, but you've got to get through there.
Yeah, so that makes them come and play.
Yeah. and they're okay in melee. They don't hit very well unless you use the detachment roll. With their basically they've got 4-1-1 is their melee profile, 2 attacks each. So for chaff clearing they're not bad, but for any kind of serious contender for objectives like I don't know, plague marines, you're just going to run away. You aren't going to fight.
Yeah. Okay, nice. And then what are you sort of flavouring that? Where's your sort of damage coming from? That's kind of a lot of the holding in place.
So you bring at least 2 assassins, 3 if you can stretch to it. You'll probably want to bring the Calidus for mission play because the Calidus is really good, and the 12-inch making the CP strats cost
it's just
more.
really good.
It's really good. And being able to drop it in and just go, oh, you want to contend the center objective? I'm just going to pop this Calidus here. Let's see what you can do with it now. And the other one is the Eversaw, which is basically a ground attack missile, because he is now bonkers.
Yes, so that's my understanding. Does he still scout the Eversaw? Has he lost that?
Yes, he scouts 9
so
inches.
He still scouts. Okay, so scout 9. What's his movement?
His movement is 9.
So that's 18 already plus charge.
But once per game, you can choose to do overkill, which then adds 6 to his normal move. It's still a normal move, and he can still shoot advance. He can still shoot advance and charge if he wants to, but he gets an additional 3 melee attacks, which are all sustained hits 3 and precision.
Oh my word!
So
he just goes. Is he a damage 2 AP
damage 2? Anti-infantry 3 up.
Oh my word! Okay, so he just flies off, absolutely destroys a unit.
Yep.
Takes a character out first if he is so minded. So a little, an absolute missile then on him. Okay, he sounds amazing. And so Eversaw and Calidus would be a pick. How are the other 2 looking? Are they okay? The Vindicator and the Calexis?
I like the Calexis. The Calexis is a personal preference of mine. Now
this is all a big brain exercise for you, really. So you can relate, right?
Yeah. So the thing with the Calexis is obviously anti-psyker. The 2-up field of pain against psychic is cool, and having extra attacks against psykers and being 2-up to hit, 2-up to wound on psykers, all very cool stuff. But the things that are also beneficial to him, and it comes part of the gameplay for Agents, is 9-inch now. He used to be 6 inches, now a 9-inch aura, where he worsens the leadership of everything within 9 inches by 1. Okay. And if it's a psyker unit, he worsens it by 2.
Okay.
And once per game, in any command phase, you can do a mini Shadows of the Warp for everything within that range.
Wow.
You basically go, right, take a battle shot. I'm going to take primary off you now.
Yes. Okay. So he's going to drop in, flip some points, make some scoring difficult for the opponent, and give you that kind of tyrannid energy of, well, I may not have tabled you, but I've kept you at bay. I've kept the score close, and now I've done you over on the score, and now it's too late for you to do anything about it. Yeah, that feels like a tool you want in this list to me.
And having it being able to do 3-inch deep strike is just a nice threat, because that's a base.
You're just going to drop in.
Yeah,
you're just going to drop in and do that. There's no way of stopping him. That's awesome. I like that a lot. Okay, so you got the assassins. Is the list now done? Is that ready to go, or are there still some secret sauce we need?
So you want to take a navigator. Once upon a time, you took Inquisitorial Agents because you could take a Mystic, and the Mystic had a 12-inch deep strike deny bubble. But now you take the Navigator because he's one character that does exactly the same job all by himself.
Okay, so nice.
For 60 points, you have something that sits on your home objective. And if your opponent's got indirect, you bring a 50-point unit to make his wounds more. You just attach him to some Voidsman arms to make him less
beautiful.
Squishy.
Yeah, so just good old backfield screening.
Yeah. And a unit that I haven't played enough of with, but I feel should probably be in most lists, is Sisters and an Immolator. Simply because Immolator's got the toughest armor for one of our vehicles that's now in the codex, and being able to split the squad, so effectively you're getting an extra unit for free with Sticky, which is just really good.
That's really, really useful. Again, because there's a very sneaky scoring denial army in here, isn't there, where it's trying to bamboozle the opponent, so Sticky can help you in that regard, as can transports.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Immolator's nice. And that was kind of where I was going to go next, in thinking in terms of, obviously, you've got the Adeptus Sororitas, you've got the Death Watch, and you've got the Grey Knight Terminators and Imperial Knights as possible plugins here.
Yeah.
Across that spread, what do you see the value being? Are there some of those that you wouldn't bother with at all, or do you think they all offer something, or what are you kind of thinking in terms of how you could plug them in?
So this is an interesting conversation, and it's been a kind of discovery of most of the people in the competitive scene, is that the Grey Knight Terminators are a trap.
Okay.
Because they're only 190. They're 190 points, which is nice and cheap, but you only get 5, and you can only take 5.
Yeah.
Without Armor of Contempt and all of the other things that's effectively detachment locked. If you take the Malleus detachment, which is the worst detachment, then you can have Armor of Contempt, but you just wouldn't.
Okay.
They're what they are. They're a 5-man Terminator brick. They're fairly durable with their 2-ups and their 4-ups, but they still die. And even though you can make them +1 OC with the Ancient Banner, and you can get them back up with an Arthesium, they still die. There's only 5 of them.
Yeah.
So
5 is quite tough to protect, isn't it? Without all the shenanigans that Grey Knights have to apply them in different places and everything else, which is what really makes them sing. Yeah. Okay, so the Terminators are a trap. You heard it here first, guys. Terminators aren't going to cut it. How about the Death Watch? What are the Death Watch bringing?
Now, see, I think the Death Watch are pretty good, actually.
Okay.
They're not as good as they would be in Space Marine Detachment, obviously, because of all the buffs you can give them, and they are still squishy. They do die, because, funnily enough, in the competitive meta, every man and his dog is built for killing Marines. And they
gotta be
Marines.
Right. They're everywhere. Yeah.
But you can make them a little bit more durable by giving them a couple of shields. Having 4 hammers is nice, because the Thunder Hammers in the Death Watch is pretty good, because they're strength 10, AP 2, flat damage 3. And using the Fleet Detachment, you can either buff their hitting to make their hits from 4 to 3s, which will be re-rolling 1s, or re-rolling everything if it's in Xenos, because of their data sheet ability, or you can give the entire unit a 5-up invuln save and an additional OC, making them OC3 apiece, as well as the fact that they are a battle line unit. So they do have that going for them in the current meta, where battle line is much more usable for some secondaries and some tertiary missions.
Yeah, for sure. And you get a little bit of your old advance and action back, which is nice.
You do.
In Swift action. Yeah.
With the on that, the Watchmaster, if you're going to take Death Watch, if you're going to take Death Watch as MSU, so running them in little 5s, then you're probably fine as is. But if you want to take a big brick, and I'd suggest taking the Watchmaster as well, because advance and charge, or advanced shoot and charge, or fullback and charge, nice. As well as the captain's ability for -1 CP for a strap for the unit.
Mm-hmm.
So you're giving your unit sustained hits 1 and lance when it does its advance and charge for 1 CP rather than 2, using fleet rules. So I think
very nice.
Death Watch have got a lot of play in many detachments. So there's a place for them, definitely.
Okay, very nice. And how about Knights? Where do you sit with Knights?
So this is a divided thing in the little.
Sounds like there's a very intense Imperial Agents community that I'm unaware of.
It's a small, tight-knit group, but there's lots of very opinionated people. The one that seems to be like the go-to at the minute, and I can understand why, but I've never played with it yet, is the Atropos, because he's just a beast. He's got a lot of shooting output, but also he's got the 5-up invuln and melee, as well as 5-up invuln at range, which makes him just that little bit more resilient, because whenever you put down a knight on the table in an Imperial Agents army, everyone knows, oh, that's your output, I'm going to kill it now, which is why Canis is a trap. Canis is really good, but he dies very fast.
Yeah, it can often feel like it's just giving the opponent's big gun something to do, bringing the one big guy, right?
Yep.
Okay, so maybe spreading wider than that is your preference.
So yeah, my preference is always for armigers, at least 2, because again, battle line, can't go wrong with having more battle line, but also a 12-inch move with 8 OC. You can put a lot of OC on objectives from just these 2 little round bodies. Yeah,
very, very nice. Okay. So I think we've got a sense of our ingredients. So before we get into how you play this, because obviously the Imperial Fleets is where we're starting, if you just want to give the sort of TLDR on the other detachments and what your kind of impression of them is. You mentioned that maybe the Order Hereticus has a place specifically into Chaos. What's the kind of character of the other detachments if someone was going to try and make them work. Let's say someone as bloody minded as you from a few months ago came along and went, I'm gonna double down. I'm gonna be the Auto Malleus guy. What do they need to know? What's the key things here?
Right. So Auto Malleus, you're going to max out on Grey Knights. You're going to take your 3 allotments of Grey Knight Terminators because most of the strats are built around them, including the 3-inch rapid ingress, which is kind of cool.
That is cool. That's very cool. Yeah.
Just throwing down 15 odd OC and just going, look, here, deal with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're going to bring those. You're going to bring Inquisitors and Inquisitorial Agents because you want to bulk them out. So you'll be bringing Chimeras. So you can put all of your Inquisitorial Agents in your Chimeras and have tanks and bodies like that. And Assassins. You want Assassins because
Assassins seem to be a go-to. Assassins are just great. Yeah.
And Subductors.
Okay, Assassins and Seductors are the core of this army right now.
Pretty much,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah, and build it around Cotiers because Cotiers, he is the Auto Malleus guy, and he buffs his whichever unit he gets attached to quite nicely. Also, the way the Grey Knights work is that if you stick an Inquisitor with them, the Inquisitor gets Deep Strike as well, so you don't penalise your Grey Knights by bringing an Inquisitor with them. They can still Deep Strike the whole unit.
That makes sense.
Which is good. And lethal hits on a charging Cotiers is pretty good because his hammer's not bad either. 933.
Oh, that's very good. That's very nice. And of course, his model is at least a talking point. So
yeah,
so that's
it's a very good talking point.
Yeah, you'll always have that if you're using Cotiers. So I can see the appeal in getting the eyes rolling on the table. Okay, so that's Auto Malleus. How about the Ordo Hereticus?
So Ordo Hereticus, I think, is the next best detachment after Fleet.
Okay.
And what you do is you max out on Immolators. So you take 3 squads of Sisters and then 6 Immolators. And then the rest you fill out with as many RBTs as you can. And that's every flavour of RBTs. So you bring your Seductors. You bring some Exaction Squad for Reanimation Protocol. Because they've lost the Feel No Pain, the same way that the Rogue Trade Entourage lost the Feel No Pain. Instead, they now get D3 models back in the command phase.
Yeah, okay.
And you bring Vigilance. Vigilance are the worst of the RBTs, but they are 2OC and Battle Line, so that's literally the only thing they have going for them, which is a shame. But yeah, that's what you fill it out with, and Inquisitors. You focus it around the Hereticus, focusing on RBTs, or Sisters, Hereticus, and Inquisitor keywords, and that's where all the strats for that faction lie. And the RBTs models have a better base number of attacks. They've got 2 melee attacks across the board, and the Inquisitorial Agents will have 3 melee attacks, so you're just relying on sustained hits, throwing sheer volume of melee, knowing that when you bounce, which you will, they'll die. So just have the next wave ready to go in.
Yeah, this is an army that involves some bouncing, I imagine, in its time. Okay, excellent. And was there any other detachments, or is that what you get with this book?
No, you get the Death Watch Ordo Xenos, which is the
Ordo Xenos. Okay.
Yeah, all of the strats focused around the Death Watch keyword. So it's you could run an entire army of Death Watch, but that's a lot of veterans. There's a lot of Corvus Black Stars, a lot of Rhinos, and some Inquisitorial Agents. It's just not good. At the point of which you've got enough points to build the Ordo Xenos army, you're just going to run Gladius Task Force instead.
Yes, yeah. I think that seems to be the feeling with Deathwatch in general, isn't it? There's like you probably go that way if you were going to use them, and then the question is why that you would. When there's potentially other ways to do it. Okay, that's very useful to know. As far as the Inquisitors themselves go in this book, how many of them do you tend to put in lists? So I realised we hadn't name checked them earlier on. We obviously talked about Cotiers. Are they not making it into the Imperial Agents list? Because that's
no, they absolutely are.
So thank heavens for that. Okay, right, lay it on me. Let's hear.
Alas, we've dropped some Inquisitors, so we have to bid farewell to Eisenhorn and Karamazov, which is a shame.
That's brutal.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun cast, to be fair, but it is a shame because they were fun. And when they made Karamazov Legends, they made him better. He's really good now.
That's so annoying.
So we've now got Cotiers, Draxus, and Greyfax. The quiet nerf for Greyfax, which still makes me sad, was her leadership. She's now got the same leadership value as the rest of the Inquisitors, which is a leadership value of 6.
Right. Okay.
But in Index, she had a leadership value of 4. She had the best leadership value in the entire game, and you couldn't modify it to be any better, which is a shame.
That's amazing. And now it's gone.
And now it's gone.
I've just learned about it, and now it is gone. Okay. Well, what else? What else do they bring?
So the generic Inquisitor, which is the 4th one, which we don't talk about much, but is pretty good, 55 points. It gives you CP Reclaim on a 3-up, that's his ability. And he's got a 2d6 flamer that does dev wounds in psychic form, which isn't terrible. Yeah. We also got, and for 55 points, it's not a bad body.
No, that's very cheap. Yeah.
And then you've got Greyfax and Draxus. They're both T3 body, 4 wounds apiece, 4-up base save with a 5-up invuln, not terrible. Draxus still has her 18-inch faux lone op ability, which is good to bear in mind because the Vindicar, who gets round lone op, doesn't get round abilities that act like lone op but don't say lone op.
That's fun. Okay, so you've got
so
all
you
that
can't
tech
shoot
for the mirror, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
you can't shoot Draxus. And of course, she gives +1 to hit against Xenos for whatever she's attached to, which is just good. Greyfax's abilities are slightly changed now. She used to have no escape rule, which is now a enhancement for the Order Hereticus detachment, I think.
Okay.
But her new ability, I've just got the codex in front of me because I haven't run her out yet. Her new ability is No Mercy, same title. And while this model is using a unit, each time a model in that unit makes an attack that targets a unit below half strength, add 1 to the hit roll. So basically, not a good ability.
No.
But her other one of anti-psycho 4-up for her unit isn't terrible.
No, not at all. That's definitely nice in some situations.
Yeah,
a little bit situational. Okay. And so, what Inquisitors are you tending to plug in when you play?
I take Cotiers simply because the Autarch exists, and every time he gains a CP, I want to gain a CP. If you're going to have extra CP, I'd like extra CP.
Yeah, so Cotiers gets you CP. Sounds like he's a proper melee blender as well.
And of the Inquisitors, he does have the best stats in the sense that he's got a 2-up base save and a 4-up invuln.
Nice. And how many points is he setting you back?
He's setting me back 75 points.
That's cheap, to be honest, for what he does. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And some of the combos in Imperial Fleet sound very nice on him as well.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And that's actually where we want to go next. Before we talk about how this army plays and how you found it on the table, the points. So, 1 point if you're plugging it in, 1 point if you're taking it on your own. And my understanding is they're pretty priced to move if you play exclusively Imperial Agents in terms of being quite cheap and quite cheerful. How do you feel the balance of points is? Is there anything you think they got wrong? Anything you'd change?
I think they got the Vindicar wrong for many reasons.
Okay.
One, pricing him at 150 points for being taken as an ally, you won't see him. He's extortionately expensive. At 110 points, he was 80 points previously. He's now 110 points, and he still whiffs exactly the same number of shots.
Which is all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Sure, he ignores lone op, but when you roll a 1, it doesn't matter that you've ignored lone op. It's still a 1. And then you CP reroll it into another 1.
Yeah. He's such a weird unit in 40k where I always feel like you don't want him to be so good it always works because poor opponent if they're just always having their cool character picked up. But also it's like it's a sniper in a building and it's like that's his one job. I've never seen him do it. I swear I've never seen him actually successfully kill anyone. And every time they change him up and tune him up and he still never quite manages it. Okay, so the Vindicator's a bit of a victim here.
Yeah.
Who else on the points front would you say has been hard done by?
From an internal perspective, I think the Inquisitorial Agents actually now where they sit. I mean, they hit better. Their stats have improved, so they hit better, and they've got a myriad of weapons to play with, but they are paper thin. They do die to a stiff breeze now, because they used to be 2 wounds apiece, and they used to hit worse. But now they're 1 wound, and so they just fall over immediately.
Oh, no.
So even at 50 points, which is pretty cheap, I still think that they are priced higher than they should be.
Right, okay. Yeah, that's very reasonable.
Who else? I think otherwise they've got it pretty much good for most things. I think subductors are awesomely cheap, and I will expect them to go up in the MFM. They are
Yeah.
likely going to go up.
Okay, so they're very, very cheap, and this feels like it's the sort of pivot around which the rest of it can play right now.
Yeah.
Just because it's going to force the player to get involved. So let's talk about it. How have you found this book to play? You've actually, I'm sure you will have been like, I will play pure Imperial Agents from the get go. I will find out how this works. So you are the guy we can ask. How does this army play on the tabletop side? What's it trying to do? What kind of strategies have you been employing in your game so far? And is it working? But we'll come to that in a moment.
2 separate questions. I'm glad you put it that way.
Yeah. I think it's good to execute the plan regardless. It's like GSC, and then we'll find out what happened afterwards.
That's exactly it. So they kind of play like Drukhari a bit. In the sense
my word.
That,
okay.
Yeah. In a sense that you're relying on movement shenanigans and primary denial.
Okay.
So something Agents has got going for it is a lot of OC. There's a lot of units with 2 OC, and you've got a lot of bodies that you can get places relatively quickly, or already have places, so that you can just bog down objectives. And even though you're not going to take primary because your stuff's going to die, you know they're not going to take primary because next turn you can just throw another 5 2 OC.
Yeah, you've got a lot of idiots, right? It's an idiot's army. You've got to have idiots to throw. Okay, I like that. You're speaking my language.
And the other thing they can do is weird bits, which is much the same way that Drukhari does, which is like, I'm going to attack it. Fantastic. I'm going to move 6 inches and get back in that venom. I'll do the same. You're going to shoot me. Great. You're going to shoot me. I'm going to move 6 inches and get back in that rhino.
Yeah. I love it.
Because at the end of a normal move in your opponent's shooting phase, it's still a normal move. I can get back in that rhino.
Yes. Very, very, very good. Okay. So you've got some sort of sneaky tricks. You can draw fire, run away, use primary denial, and then for your damage, you're kind of relying on what you're relying on the Inquisitors, some of the juicing up with the strats, maybe a couple of armigers in there for a bit of shooting and grenades in the main.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. You've got maybe a couple of heavy bolters on a Chimera that you've brought with you, or the Hunter Killer on the Rhino. If you're relying on the Hunter Killer, don't do that. Yeah. So it is the armigers. One thing I've found that's quite flexible is you bring a Helver in, because anti-fly, there's a lot. Deployment zones are quite big now, so as long as you're within your deployment zone, your Helverin's gone anti-fly, and a lot of armies now are bringing something that flies. It means that yes, that's nice. You've got your T-Sun's army has Magnus. That's fantastic. I'm still wounding him on 2s.
Yeah. Nice. Very, very nice. And in terms of sort of results and matchups so far, how have you found it? How has this journey been, Si? Is it an improvement in terms of strength, or has it been hard?
So I confess, since the codex has dropped, I have played a sum total of 5 full competitive games on the clock and everything, and time is still a problem. Because I find that an Agent's army that's got sub 100 miniatures runs out by turn 3, so you need to be talking around 105, 120 miniatures on the board models, because otherwise you just run out of stuff, and that is the problem with Agents, because everything dies. We don't have ways to get it back like GSC do, and we don't have raiders that we can just throw up there and say, yes, it's going to die, but you have to get to it first, and it's going to run away very fast. We can't do that. So it's just a case of, it's our war of attrition and just regulating the flow of troops onto death, basically. So far, I confess, I have won no games. I've played 5 competitive games and won none of them.
That is okay. That's where we're at. We're figuring this thing out. That's the journey. That's the quest.
I've drawn one into GSC, though.
Oh, hero. Very good. Very good.
But in my sum total of competitive games, I've played 2 demons, 1 Chaos Knight. Those are probably the worst matchups.
Not very good for you.
Do anything against them.
You can't hurt them.
That's a great unclean one, and that's Rotigus. Yes, fantastic. So that's objectives yours. Then I'll be over there in that corner of the board and see if I can keep you away. And into Hypercrypt Necrons as well.
Okay.
Which was a loss, but only by 10 points.
Okay, so that's close. So what sorts of armies do you think it would feel more comfortable playing into? What kinds of things would you like to see?
Nids. So Monster Mash Nids isn't bad, because you can just throw OC that will die but slow them down, because they can't necessarily run away. I mean, yes, they can run through walls now, but still got to run through. Exactly. Still got to run through my shield wall of dudes. Yeah. And you will kill them, but not straight away, because they've all got 4-up inbounds.
Yeah, that helps.
Um, so Nids is a good one. Eldari and
Yeah.
Drakari, not bad. As long
Yep.
as they don't get the drop on you, you've got the edge because they're still only T3 bodies, and you can just bear down on them and then have more OC.
Yeah, and that's it. You can play the trash trading game in the same sort of way, right? And
Yeah.
you've got a few responses and tricks of your own. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I guess it's the kind of it's very high toughness skew is not what you want. Stuff that's playing on your level, playing your kind of game, where here's some janky, more flimsy things going on.
Yeah.
That feels like more of an actual game for the agents. Now
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense, man. And good luck. I'm sure that results will improve as you get the deep learning of the book in and start figuring it all out. What do you think, if we're looking beyond just the Agents book itself, what aspects of this do you think we're going to see plugged into other armies and obviously Imperial armies going forwards? Is this a book that people are going to be looting and pillaging to try and find little morsels from?
Yeah, so there's some tools in here that other armies can use, definitely. I expect to see navigators popping up all over the shop.
Of
because
course, yeah.
75 points for something that can sit on your home objective and screen a whole corner of the
Yeah,
board.
why pay for infiltrators when you can get the same thing for cheap?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Inquisitors actually lend themselves really well to a bunch of units. So Draxus, you'll still see Draxus being taken with Custodian Guard and other things that hit hard, like Grey Knights and things like that. +1 to wound, and also then the whole 18-inch you can't shoot at this unit bubble is still pretty good. Cotiers, given his unit, the 4-up Invan against demons and psychic isn't terrible either.
Not
And
at all.
his other ability, which is quite nice, is in the command phase. You just pick a unit within 18 inches and just it doesn't get cover for the rest of the turn.
That's really nice. Yeah, that's really good. Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'll see much by way of breaches taken in other armies, but subductors, not the exaction squads. So yeah, there's a couple of units that you'll see picked up. Voidsmen, not so much now, because you can only take them in a 6, and because they've lost the battle line keyword, they probably won't be a keen choice, even at 50 points. But yeah, at 85 points for 11 bodies with access to 10 4-up invans, you'll probably see them popping up in Imperial armies as either backfield sitters for things like Imperial Knights or as bullies for Imperial Guard.
Okay.
Definitely see the Eversaw out in action though. The assassins
Yeah,
are
so
still very much.
that thing just sounds bonkers to me and very, very useful. As just because you can use that if you want to just yeet that at the start to get the pressure on, you can. I think there's a few armies wouldn't mind him in concert with other game plans. So definitely quite a scary lad. I'm already afraid of him, and he's not even graced my table yet. Okay, that's very interesting to know. So I think what we'll then do here is end with your words of wisdom for aspiring Imperial Agents players who are coming to join you in the trenches. What is your sort of mantra? What advice are you going to give them as they go and start figuring this book out and using it on the tabletop side?
So our key weapons are surprise and subterfuge. And you take that to heart. Basically, don't go out and expect to win games with this faction because it's going to always be an uphill struggle.
Yeah.
But you will very much relish the face of your opponent when you get to turn 3 and they say, wait, you're winning on primary. Not because you've got more points than them, but they've got less. They've just got less than they thought.
Yeah. Excellent. And that's it. Go out there, be the surprise factor, be like Sai, go and take some big names off some of the meta factions. I'm sure it's possible. And Sai, obviously, you are not too far from me now because I'm down the road in the south again. So I will have to get a game in against this book.
Oh, that sounds
I
good.
am very excited. So we shall make that happen, and maybe we can report back on that for the channel at some point so they know what went on and how it went down as well. That seems like a good use of our time. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Sai, for coming and spilling the beans on the Imperial Agents. And we will see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.